The ANC will not be deterred by those who wish to see South Africa return to the quote-unquote good old days of apartheid economic privilege. The DA has once again revealed its anti-transformation agenda by opposing the progressive budget proposal.
Ladies and gentlemen, gather around because today, we are diving deep into the political spectacle that is the 2025 national budget. And at the center of it all, ANC Secretary-General Fikile Mbalula. Now, if there's one thing you can count on in South African politics, it's that Mbalula never shies away from a good soundbite. So, let's set the scene.
This budget proposal is a step in the right direction, ensuring that public spending remains redistributive, that economic transformation continues, and that government resources are used to uplift the most vulnerable. The ANC will not be deterred by those who wish to see South Africa return to the quote-unquote good old days of apartheid economic privilege. We remain committed to the people's aspirations, and we will continue working towards a South Africa that is inclusive, just, and economically transformed. As expected, the DA has once again revealed its anti-transformation agenda by opposing the progressive budget proposal. Their opposition is not based on concerns for fiscal responsibility, but is instead a desperate attempt to undermine transformation, protect white monopoly capital, and roll back the democratic gains made over the past 3 decades. The DA seeks to use the budget process as leverage to renegotiate its role within the GNU, not because it has interests of the people at heart, but because it is determined to advance an agenda that prioritizes privilege over progress. It is disingenuous for anyone to project themselves as poor in terms of their disposition, when in fact they are not. The DA's demands expose their true intentions. They want labor laws to be scrapped so that employers can fire workers at will. They want black economic empowerment policies to be abandoned.
The 2025 national budget has just been tabled, and as expected, it has sent shockwaves through the political landscape. Opposition parties are already sharpening their knives, economists are scratching their heads, and the people, well, they just want to know how this budget affects their wallets. Enter Fikile Mbalula, the man with the mic, ready to set the record straight. Mbalula steps up, adjusts his tie, and does what he does best: defends the ANC's position with the kind of flair that only he can pull off. According to him, this budget is a progressive one, designed to uplift the poor, strengthen infrastructure, and steer South Africa towards economic recovery. Now, if you've been paying attention to South African politics for the past decade, you'll know that every budget is described as a progressive one. But let's break it down. What's actually in this budget? One of the biggest talking points is social grants. The ANC has made it clear that they will not cut grants, despite the economic strain. Mbalula takes this as his victory lap, emphasizing that the ANC remains committed to supporting the most vulnerable. But let's be real, in a country where millions rely on these grants to survive, was cutting them ever really an option? Then, we have infrastructure spending. Mbalula hypes up the government's investment in roads, electricity, and water infrastructure. He throws in a few numbers, talking about billions allocated to fixing potholes and stabilizing Eskom. But here's the question: how much of this budget will actually translate into real, tangible improvements? Because we all remember when billions were allocated to fix Eskom, and yet, load shedding became our daily reality. Now, let's talk debt. South Africa's debt to GDP ratio is still climbing, and opposition parties aren't letting Mbalula off the hook. They argue that the government is spending recklessly, borrowing more than it should. Mbalula, of course, is having none of it. He spins it as strategic borrowing, and investment in the future. But let's not forget, we've been hearing about strategic borrowing for years, and yet, service delivery remains a pressing issue. Then comes the part everyone's been waiting for, taxes. There's no major tax increase, which Mbalula calls a win. But the opposition fires back, pointing out that the cost of living is still rising. Fuel prices, electricity tariffs, food costs, South Africans are feeling the pinch. So, while there might not be a direct tax hike, the indirect financial squeeze is very real. And let's not forget the private sector. Mbalula stresses that this budget aims to create an investor-friendly climate. But let's be honest, investors have been nervous for a while now. Load shedding, policy uncertainty, and economic instability have made South Africa a risky bet. So, the big question remains, will this budget actually boost investor confidence, or is it just another speech full of political promises? As Mbalula wraps up his address, he does what he does best, throws a few jabs at the opposition, reminds everyone that the ANC is still in charge, and assures South Africans that this budget is for them. But here's where I turn it over to you. Do you think this budget is actually going to change anything? Or is this just another case of political grandstanding? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into South African politics. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and most importantly, stay woke.